Okay, we're rolling. We're live. This is Raw Me. About to talk about trigeminal neuralgia, and hope for those of you who, of course, are struggling with this terrible disease, also known as a suicide disease. I want to really quick get into some questions I think that would be helpful for you all before we share with you what might help you in your quest to have relief and possibly even be healed of this disease. I'm your host, Troy Monroe, and we're going to get right into it. This is my first question for you. Well, actually, Mia, please just introduce yourself real quick before I get into these questions.
Hi, as Troy said, my name is Raw Me. Actually, that's my online name for everything I do. The name I'm going to give you is my birth name. It's Mia Young. Not used anymore, but that's the name, of course, that I'm diagnosed under. So I'm using that just in case I'm ever called to pull my medical records, things will match. I have been dealing with this disease for quite some time. I'm going to try not to answer the questions ahead of time. The reason why we're doing question and answer is because I can ramble on for a while and not be concise. So we figured it was best for Troy to ask questions that, viewers would be interested in. Not only those with trigeminal neuralgia, but those without. So we're going to do, I believe we're going to go ahead and do the question and answers first. If I need to fill in any blanks, I will. But the questions are pretty concise. The only thing I'm not going to get into on this video is the loss that I've suffered behind this disease. And basically because it's just a tad bit too painful. I'm not sitting here by myself, and so what I'm doing is where this video is housed, where you found it. If you scroll down, you'll see a list of things that I've lost behind this disease, and all trigeminal neuralgia patients will understand that list, at least 1 or 2 points on it. Hopefully not all of them, because nobody should be as bad as I've been. But we're just going to go ahead and jump into the questions, and then we'll just take it from there.
All right, great. Okay, Raw Me, this is the first question for our listeners, and you can share your knowledge on this. What is trigeminal neuralgia? What is this disease?
Trigeminal neuralgia is hell. But medically, what it is you have 2 large nerves on either side of your face. And I'm a registered nurse as well, so I'm not just talking from what I've researched. 2 large branches of nerve that supply either side of your face. And off of that big nerve comes 3 branches, one supplying the lower part of your face, one supplying the middle, and one supplying the upper edge. People that get trigeminal neuralgia will get to a point where they're feeling electric or stabbing-like pains along one of those branches. And if you're lucky, only one of those branches. That is just debilitating. It stops anything that you would do with your mouth. Eating stops. Drinking stops. Talking stops. Smiling stops. Brushing your teeth stops. It is horrific. It is absolutely horrific. And it's a pain that, like I said, is easy to describe, but hard for people who don't have the disease to understand. And there's different ways people get it. Most people, I was diagnosed very early. I was diagnosed when I was 32. First traces started when I was 28, but I'm not supposed to get into that because that's a question. But it's a very horrific, painful neurologic disease that is not taken care of by regular pain medications. Normally the medications that take care of the pain are medications that slow your nerves down, which are seizure medications. But unfortunately, they don't just slow those nerves down from firing. They slow all the nerves down in your body from firing, which, we'll probably get into a little bit later.
So, why do they call it the suicide disease?
Doctors around the world have decided that this is the most painful condition ever known to man. Neurologists around the world are in agreement with that. Trigeminal neuralgia patients are even in more agreement. There's not a moment when you're going through attacks or in a period where you're not in remission that you don't want to take your own life. The thought of, didn't realize that would be an emotional one. The thought of going to sleep at night, if you can go to sleep, and waking up another morning in pain is, it's, you just don't want to do it after a while, even after a few days. There has not been a moment in time since I've had this disease that when I'm out of remission or in pain mode that I don't wish to take my life, sometimes after each and every attack.
Okay, so now you've had this disease for quite some time, probably longer than most people have had the disease. What is the statistic on how long a person endures before they actually come to the place where they take their life with this disease? And then how long have you had it as opposed to others?
Well, one of the statistics I read maybe about 2 or 3 years ago was that if you're in that upper 2 to 3% of people who are just experiencing the worst pain, you may make it within, I think if I read it correct, within 3 to 7 years, 75% of those people take their lives. Of course, I didn't get that memo. I have now been diagnosed for 14 and a half years.
So you would say then that you are like a probably record-breaking example of someone who has endured this for so long and yet are still hanging in there, and probably quite the miracle.
Well, my neurologist, the last one that I dealt with, he asked me point blank, why are you still alive? And I looked at him, I was like, what is he talking about? This disease isn't fatal, it doesn't kill you. And so I asked him, well, what do you mean? He's like, you should have killed yourself a long time ago. I can only have one answer to that question. When I was diagnosed, my daughter was 7. I'm somebody's mother. Did I want to kill myself? Yes. Have I almost done it? Yeah. But, spirit kicks in and kept me going.
Okay. Now this is a sensitive question, but I think it's worth asking, for our listeners. What do you think caused the disease for you? What do you think caused it?
Wow. Sensitive is an understatement. I'm very blessed to know pretty well why I have the disease, and even more blessed that I didn't find out until my 12th year in. I was in a abusive relationship from the time I was 28 years old until I was, it was about a good 10-year relationship. And early on, before we were even, quote-unquote, in a relationship, we were just kind of messing around. He got drunk one night and choked me. And throughout the 10 years, I've probably been choked like that by him maybe a few more times. But at year 12, Troy found an upper cervical specialist that I agreed to go to, more for him than for me, because I didn't too much care. I didn't think there was no way to be cured, but I went. And the upper cervical specialist did some x-rays of my whole body, of my neck and everything, and he sent us away. We went on a walk, and he looked at the x-rays, and when we got back, he was able to point out and even tell us that the guy was right-handed and choked me with his right arm. What had happened was the choking and the bending my neck a certain way. Your cervical spine is supposed to sit like this, just straight. Mine, when they did the x-ray, sat like this and tilted. So what we believe is a pretty good thing is that those bones have been scraping the covering. It's like an electrical covering off of that nerve. And that is most likely what caused it. I've had MRIs. They couldn't see any tumors. They couldn't see the, what they say for some people, the main blood vessel bulging up against that nerve. I just don't appear to have any myelin sheath, or not enough anyway, to stop me from being sick on that nerve from the cervical spine, the bones scraping it down. So it looks like my trigeminal neuralgia was caused by physical assault.
And did you notice it around the time between like the injury or the episode, the violent episode that you guys had, and after that, or was it sometime months afterwards, or was it right after the incident?
My very first shock, and this was about 3 or 4 years before I was diagnosed, it was just like somebody just stabbed me in the face with a hot ice pick. And it was real quick, and then it was gone, and then it didn't happen again for another 6 months. So that happened, and I'm really guessing, somewhere maybe between maybe around 4 months after the first assault.
Okay. So now describe for us, like, the pain that you go through during an episode or an attack. What actually do you experience?
Well, when I was diagnosed, the first thing they told me was, you're never going to be healed, and you're going to have periods of remission, and every time you come out of remission, it's going to be different and worse. And they didn't lie. What started off as just little shocks here and would sometimes run down my jaw. Actually, it didn't even start off like that. The first ones were just shocks right here, and they'd run up my head. By year 12, it wasn't just my lower jaw anymore. Year 12 actually brought in the second branch of the nerve, and then the third branch right behind it within a week. So the bottom jaw always feels like being stabbed with a hot ice pick, starting from my ear, where that trigeminal nerve runs right behind it before it branches off. And it'll run down my face, or sometimes it'll start here and go up. When the second nerve kicks in, that feels like razor blades. Just being sliced with the razor blades. And when the third branch kicks in, it feels like getting hit upside your head with the biggest brick you can imagine a few times. Only once have they all fired at the same time. And I borderline passed out. I threw up on the floor and just fell. I couldn't even scream. But that's only happened once, that they all fired together.
Okay, how often, through the course of a day would you experience these episodes of pain?
Depends on the day. At its worst, I used to say between 100 to 300 times a day with a trigger. Whether I moved my mouth, breathed too deep, caught a breeze that hit me on my lip right here. But my very last out and almost suicide attempt was in that 12-year run, and there was no trigger needed. They just came by themselves for 36 hours straight, every 3 minutes, on the nose. Throughout the night, I was rubbing my ear, something that I thought worked. I don't know if it worked or not, but I ended up busting my own lip, and it swole. I rubbed the skin off the side of my face, and I went to work that night and actually delivered a baby with those pains coming every 3 minutes on the nose. 2 hours after that delivery and the mother was stable, I left work. I went down to the ER, and I begged in writing for Tegretol.
Now, speaking of Tegretol, the medication that's required for a person that has this type of pain as yourself, and of course our listeners that are listening, it does relieve pain. I've heard you tell me about this, but what is the danger, the side effect, of the medication? I could kind of get into the side effect, or how the pain does help, but at the same time you are dealing with a dangerous drug that that's not so healthful for you as for your health and overall.
The biggest thing about seizure medications is that they're liver toxic. And I was a registered nurse when I was diagnosed. So I was a new registered nurse, but I was a registered nurse. So I kind of knew of their liver toxicity. So I would only take the medication until the pain stopped, or if I went into remission, and then I stopped taking it. Most people continue on. There's a lot of medications out there. Some people do well with Neurontin. They're using antidepressants and stuff now. None of that stuff worked for me. It's always been Tegretol. I do not know the status of my liver right now. I've gone years without taking it. I tried natural things, but to save my life, I took the medication. But the biggest thing, forget liver toxicity, because it's something you don't see. It's the being able to function. Tegretol makes you sleepy. because it slows all the nerves down your body. It makes you sleepy. It makes it hard to walk. Anytime I would get restarted, I'd have to take a good month and just be careful. I've fallen down the stairs numerous times. When my daughter was 12, I was diagnosed when she was 7. When she was 12, she had to bathe me because I could barely stand up in the shower myself without falling or slipping forward. It makes you nauseous. It's just bad, but nothing's worse than you'd rather take that than be in pain.
And you've also experienced, you know, the effects of the Tegretol at work, having to work and be sedated with this drug.
Very unsafe, especially working nights. It's hard enough to be a night shift nurse when you're not on Tegretol and stay awake. Try doing it when you are. I said I wasn't going to get into too much loss, but the question is just perfect. I've lost jobs behind falling asleep at work, even if I was on a break. In a lot of hospitals, they do the night sleep break stuff. When you fall asleep and you can't wake up, you know. So I've suffered major losses behind this disease, and loss of work, which causes a stress when you're the main breadwinner for your family, is rough. It's very hard.
Okay. Describe for us remission versus active pain. You know, when you're in that season where you're going and all of a sudden you have a point of remission. How does all that work?
Remission is like you wake up one morning and you don't hurt. For me, as soon as the pain was just kind of gone, I started backing down off the medication just to see if I was in remission or was I overdrugged. And then all of a sudden you're not taking the medication, and it's like being in heaven, and then you forget. But as time goes on, as years go by, your remissions don't last as long as they do in the beginning. They used to last 6 months sometimes. Remissions for me now maybe would last a week. When I last started Tegretol again, I said I'd never stop taking it. The thought of coming out again, I can't imagine what pain would await me, because it's always worse. So remission is like heaven, and then for a moment you forget. And then one moment you may take a bite of something and you feel an ache under your jaw, and you know what that ache is, and you know it's coming back. And every time I came out of remission, I go into instant fear and anxiety. Just panic, depression, and it's instantaneous because you know what's coming. And you know it's going to be worse than the last time.
Okay. So at what point did you become hopeless with this disease? Like, you wanted to just go the route that is expected of a patient in your situation, seeing that it's, you know, again, trigeminal neuralgia is also called the suicide disease. At what point did you become hopeless?
I've been hopeless since the beginning. There's never been a time when I'm out that I did not want to take my own life. And especially with it getting worse each year. The very last time, my daughter just turned 19, so she's now 21. 2 years ago, I was supposed to be at church. And that morning, I'd been in pain anyway, and I just couldn't take it. And I was waiting for everybody to leave the house. And unfortunately, everybody did not leave the house to go to church that day. A roommate of ours stayed home from church that day. And I just couldn't believe it. I figured my daughter was out. She moved out. She had her own home. This was a good time for me to just be done. And so that person was still there, so I called my daughter and I said, I'm done. And instantly, I mean, this child has been on red alert since she was 7. She was like, Mom, meet me at a clinic. There's a clinic not too far from her house. So I ran out the door. My other roommate said something to me. I just looked at her and I kept running. And I got in the car and I made it out to Springfield, where my daughter was at, and we went into a clinic, and she pretty much let the nurse and the doctor have it. Basically tell them, don't ask nothing stupid, don't assume she's drug seeking, and she told them why. And after she scared them half to death, you know, I restarted the Tegretol at that point, and then I just started making ways to make sure I had the Tegretol at all times. And I don't think I've stopped since then. I don't take it like I'm supposed to, because I know it's liver toxic. I'm not trying to die, but yeah. So.
Okay, so at what point then did you have that first ray of hope? was that first, moment in your experience where you saw some light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, for the 14 years, you get false hope every time you go into remission, and then it comes back. Like I said, at year 12, I was like, I'd pretty much given up. I knew I'd always be sick. I believed what everybody had told me, that I'd never get better. And so I just tried to figure out how I was going to function. But the first large, most promising ever ray of hope was about maybe this past, I'm going to say March, or maybe in April.
I mean, before that time. Let's go back to your first initial, the first ray of hope we're talking about, where someone had the situation. They found something that
my friend Troy here in his searching found the upper cervical specialist, and all of this pretty much happened around the same time. So that was before my last out, and there's a guy who had written a book called This Time Next Tuesday, I believe it is, and he was a trigeminal neuralgia patient, and he had already planned his suicide. And his wife had found, looked in his upper cervical care and talked him into going. And he went to make her happy after suffering kind of like I have. And upper cervical adjustments worked for him. So we went up and we did that. And it seemed like it was working for a bit. But the thing about the upper cervical care is that the bones don't stay. They can be put into place, but they don't stay the first round. So you have to be in a position where you can get treated and seen. I think it was initially twice a week. Well, the one closest to us he's in Washington. We're in Oregon. It's a trip. Not a horrible trip, but it's a trip. And with me having to work and working all over Oregon, so I'm traveling as a traveling nurse. It just wasn't falling in line. And as an independent contractor, I don't have insurance, so I do everything by cash, which works out beautifully most of the time. So I actually blockaded. I just couldn't see how I could take the time off, or how we could afford to do it, to get the 2 time to 3 time a week treatments that I would need to keep the bones, my cervical spine in place. So I gave up after that. But what it did leave a light in me was that there was something out there. There had to be something natural that would fix it. And on the other videos you'll see on the page, you'll see that I've tried all kind of stuff, and everything gave glimmers of hope. And like I said, you can look at those videos, you'll see. But there were always glimmers. So what that did is, even though none of those things stuck, in the back of my mind, I always knew, or the spirit put in my mind, there's something there, and you'll find it. There is something.
Okay, so take a deep breath. I know it's a lot. You got a lot of history that you're that's running through your mind right now, and then of course, I can't help but think you're getting emotional as we go through the questions, because this is something that has robbed you of life to a large degree, of really wanting to live. But we're here today because you ran across something that can help people, and I think that was what inspired this interview and these questions, because people want to know, people want answers. The medical community continues to fail to give us the remedies that prevent disease, and we know pain is a huge thing on the list, but where there's pain, there's always the thing that's causing the pain. There's a cause, or a reason why. So what is it that you have found that has given you more relief than you've had in your past glimmers of hope, and those things that seem to cling to your experience, and then later on dropped off? This is why we're here today, for our listeners. This is the big wow.
Yeah, this is the
big wow. So share with us what that is, how that's affecting your life, and how others can benefit.
Well, you know, right off the top, being a trigeminal neuralgia patient, and you'll see it in the very first video I made 2 years ago, there was nothing more that I wanted to share with anybody but hope. That's why I kept going on these journeys trying to find a natural way to do this. And that's why I'm sitting here talking about stuff that even Troy hasn't heard me talk about too much. I've kept a lot of stuff on the inside. Hope. After, you know, a lot of research, you start to realize that there's no pill, no drink, no anything out there that can heal you. And the beautiful thing is, nothing has to heal you. Your body will heal itself if it's given what it needs to do the work. You can't expect somebody to build a mansion and not give them any bricks. You can't build anything out of thin air, and neither can your body. What we found is what Troy has found actually, and I was skeptical about trying anything else at the point where he found it, was a formula called VIMA, which stands for Vitamins, Essential Minerals, Mangosteen, and Aloe. And so he brought me a bottle of this stuff once, and actually I was in an out. I had a bad flu and I had just come out of remission, and so I was drugging up big time on Tegretol. I mean big time. And he timidly handed me a bottle of this stuff, and he doesn't do anything timidly. And I just thought, you know, I'll go ahead and take it. Within 36 hours, that stuff had detoxed every bit of Tegretol out of me, which meant intense pain. So I was like, okay, wow. Even through the pain, I'm like, if this stuff can take all of my drugs out of me within, and I was taking a lot, within 36 hours, this is something. But I stopped taking it because I'm like, I got to get my pain levels back together. And then, I think that, I might have placed the video, I don't know. I watched a video by a doctor called Dr. Edwards, who has researched the mangosteen plant. And I just started doing some research on my own. But it was that video that after I finished watching that video, I decided that if I had to go off into the forest and scream for the next 3 months, I was going to get this formula into me. So we found there's all kind of different products they have, and we found a way for me to get a little bit, not just get the slammed onslaught of the formula just by itself. And when I got the products that I was going to use, I hyper-drugged myself. I took enough medication I thought that would counteract what the VIMA would take out, and I braced myself for pain. But I took the stuff, and the pain that I was expecting did not come. If you read the logs down there, I can't rattle off the dates off the top of my head right now, but reading the logs, what happened was all of a sudden I was needing less medication, so I started doing trials. I was like, okay, I'm going to take just 1 pill today and I'll see what happens. And
so basically, when you took the VIMA formula, you went on a 90-day trial to see the effects of how it would respond, how your body would respond to you, right? And then you took notes showing, okay, this happened this day, this happened that day.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the more VIMA I drank, and like I said, there's so many different products, the less medicine I needed. So there came a point where I just started writing down when I took the medicine, or if I took a whole pill or 2 pills or half a pill. And I think the best run was I took half a pill, so 100 milligrams of Tegretol in a 9-day period before I felt another little ache on my jaw and decided to take another one. And that was the best run. And then I did the back experiment. I'm like, okay, finding great. This could be working. One way to figure out if something's not working or working, stop taking it. So I decreased the amount of VIMA I was taking dramatically for 2 weeks. I wanted to see. And I'll be danged. You will see in the logs. I had to increase my medicine big time to counteract the pain. But now the pain never got as bad as it ever was. Not even as bad as when I first came out. So something is happening. I don't know what. I believe, and this is my belief, is that my body took what was in that VIMA, and so liquid formula, and started working on fixing that nerve. I'm still not up to the levels that I was drinking, but I'm taking like a solid 2 ounces or something a day. And my medication needs are back down low again. And nobody could tell me. I've done this, I've tried this backwards and forwards. that those minerals, that my body is not taking those minerals and fixing the problem. I'm a believer, and I believe what the word says. You give the body what it needs to do its job, it will do the work for you. It will heal itself, but you got to give it something to work with.
So, you know, one thing that our listeners may, you know, want to know about the Vima formula, and I'll just move the camera over here for myself for a second.
And I'm going to get my sorbet.
Oh yeah, another thing
I'm eating cold stuff.
Yeah, now you know, you TN patients know that eating cold foods are troublesome. You know, it can cause a shock to go through your right on your, you know, in the area of your mouth or whatever, that causes you excruciating pain. And here you have someone 14 years into this.
And I'm hungry right now, so excuse me.
And eating something cold, and she doesn't operate like this on a normal basis, you know.
I don't eat on a normal basis.
And that's another thing, you know, that she described to me as far as when you're going through pain, is that you sometimes don't eat. It can stop you from actually.
You don't talk, you don't smell, you don't eat. I'm not a skinny woman, as you guys can tell. A lot of that, and like this research, we can talk about research forever. My body stays in starvation mode. Whatever I do put on into it, it holds on to with dear life, because it doesn't know if it's going to be getting food the next day. And if I'm in pain, I'm not eating. So that's something else I want to break too. I've got the obesity issue that I've got to deal with now.
But you're down way from where you were before.
I used to be 315 pounds.
Okay.
I used to be 170 too, a year ago. But the depression, you know, that's a good point. Oh, that's kind of funny. I didn't even think about that. I gotten down to 170, eating a raw vegan diet and exercising every day. And exercising, jump up and down and let a pain shoot through your face. And I did it anyway. I was determined.
So what exercise program were
E90X.
Were you doing? Right.
P90 kill you.
While you were going through these horrific pains, she was doing P90X. So you talk about determination and someone who's, you know, willing to do whatever it takes to be healthy.
And then depression hits, and I gained it all back
on a physical side, and then and also too is willing to you know, be open-minded to try something that's natural, and that's what we believe we found in the Vima formula. Now, when we talk about the body taking something and actually using it to do repair work, the Vima formula has in it the mangosteen. And the core part of the mangosteen is the pericarp, which is the skin, which houses the xanthones. And xanthones are powerful phytonutrients that go in and do cleanup work wherever there's free radical damage or damage to tissue in general, you know, from something that we've either done to ourselves or that is injuring us from within, you know, impairing our health. And so the mangosteen, again, the core part of the Vima formula, has 43 xanthones. And these xanthones usually are found in trees mostly, and when trees are damaged or have some kind of fungus, the xanthones will go in and do cleanup work in the trees. When we eat foods that house these xanthones in them, they do the same thing in our body. And this is the first fruit, I believe, that's out there that has 43 xanthones. So not only and this is what we believe is revolutionary for this disease, because there's nothing out there that has been able to naturally help a person to relieve pain. And the Vima formula is affecting like some 43 diseases, 43 or more diseases here in the United States, but around the world 146 diseases are being positively affected by the Vima formula, where people are having reverse changes. And documented.
But not this one.
But not this one. And so that's why we put together this video to present to those of you who are suffering that this formula may be the thing that is the game changer in your experience. It's completely natural, and not only targeting, you know, the issue of pain and getting to the place where it's starting to heal, help the body to heal you, but any other disease process that you're dealing with, this formula is helping to the bodies of those who are suffering to reverse those issues and come back to health. You know, so this is why we believe
fibromyalgia being a new one. They've just put out a lot of studies that this is helping people with fibromyalgia.
So there you have it, another one. there's a website called VMAstories.com, which goes through the diseases of people who have had, arthritis, Crohn's disease, obesity, of course, ADD, for children, just a host of different ailments where the Vima formula, after taking it for quite some time, people are having these reverse changes. Now, when you're dealing with natural foods and natural sources of healing, this is not something that happens overnight. The body takes time to rebuild itself, but it does work. And according to the statistics, you need at least 90 days, to see, positive improvement on your body, because a lot of us just aren't getting the nutrients we need. And the thing about the Vima formula is it provides those 91 nutrients that your body needs. And not only that, you're getting the superfood in the mangosteen, which has the xanthones in it. And this is what we believe is really, really doing a major job inside the bodies of everybody who takes the formula. Whether you're healthy, to keep you healthy in the long run, and if you're sick, to put you on the road to being well. And that's the reason why we wanted to share this video, and I wanted to bring Mia on. She wanted to do a video. We've been thinking about this. We've been thinking about you, because we know that you're suffering, and you're saying, like, what can I do? What can I turn to besides medication, which always has a harmful side effect that is going to make positive changes in my body without having to deal with, the huge expense of an expensive medication, and then at the same time the side effects. So here's something natural, and again, the formula is called Vima, and we're going to give you a link for that after the video.
We're putting it on the website page that I've made for you guys, where all of my old videos, everything is there. If anything will give you hope, I know trigeminal neuralgia patients, we will latch on to whatever might help. Troy just mentioned that it takes some time. It didn't take 90 days for the pain to start decreasing. It took 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks. It's in the logs. And I didn't want to get overly excited, but I'm telling you, some things are worth trying. I'm not one of those patients that the surgery would help. There was no help for me. I was just going to have to wing it. And I was blessed. We prayed for years for something, And there's nothing in this world that will ever say, I buy Vima before I buy food. If I don't eat all day, I drink Vima. And that's just what it is. It's Vima first, everything else is secondary. And I don't normally get into supplements and all that stuff, because I just thought it was a bunch of mess. But I'll tell you what, you will never get Vima out of my hands. As long as I have $1 I can use, I'm going to spend it on Vima before I spend it on food.
All right. Well, this concludes our video today, and I hope you've been inspired. You have access to the blog. Your number's there to get in contact with you.
Yes, everything is there. Everything
is there, and also the information for you to get a hold of the Vima formula. This is something that you need to be on.
I say even try it. If after a month, what does it hurt to try? We're willing to take man-made medications that are going to kill us. Try. That's the one thing that I've learned through Troy. At least try. Because most of the time I just shot down everything he brought my way and told him, you can't fix this, leave me alone. But sometimes you've got to try.
And there you go. All right. We'll see you on the other side, and hope this has been informative for you. Hope this has given you hope, and I hope you will take action. And like she said, just give it a try and see what this formula will do for you, not just with pain, but so many other areas. And again, the information is on the website.
Amen.
All right. Thanks. Take care.